Over the years, Dr. Pressley has trained and worked with hundreds of central counting station election watchers and election judges in more than 30 counties around Texas. Dr. Pressley is first and foremost a Christian. Her research interests include electronic voting system technology, computerized voting tabulation processes and security, statistical analysis of electronic voting results, and central counting station central accumulator audit logs. She contested her 2014 Austin City Council election results and discovered evidence of electronic voting corruption in Travis County, and that most Texas counties are not following state laws with regards to backup records to validate electronic voting results. Over the last 5 years, Dr. Pressley has given over 450 presentations across Texas on the technical details of how Texas electronic voting machines are not adhering to state laws and how the Texas Secretary of State's Election Division is providing unconstitutional waivers to election law regarding electronic voting machines. Dr. Pressley earned her PhD in physical chemistry from the University of Texas at Austin and worked in the semiconductor industry as an engineer and manager for 17 years and holds 4 U.S. patents on semiconductor device technology. Dr. Pressley has appeared on the CBS Early Show, Roger Stone's Stone Cold Truth radio show, and has testified as a citizens advocate in the Texas Senate and House on election security and technology issues. Please help me in giving a warm CSPOA welcome to Dr. Laura Pressley.
All righty. Well, everybody, thank you for having me. I'm Dr. Laura Pressley, and I want you to buckle up, because what I'm going to show you tonight are going to be some paradigm shifts. How many in here have heard about, let's say, absentee mail-in fraud? Okay. What about those illegal voters that show up to the polls and the registration issues? How many have heard about, in Texas, proof of election corruption with electronic voting machines? Good job. Well, what I'm going to talk about today is about what's going on in Texas. I'm a Texas expert, and I've run in Texas as a candidate, and I know firsthand what goes on in this state. I've been all over the state comparing and contrasting county to county to county. Who's following the election counting laws? Because Joseph Stalin said, it doesn't matter who votes, it matters who counts. So what we're going to talk about tonight are vote counting election integrity. I want to start out with a little bit of my history. I spent 17 years in the semiconductor industry as a manager. I have a PhD in chemistry and physics. I was an engineering manager with engineers in China, Malaysia, in the US, and all over the world. I was a senior member of the technical staff and I have 4 patents. And I am a data mining expert for statistical data sets, large data sets. Because when a computer chip doesn't work, you have to go analyze a ton of parametric data, electrical data, defect data to see why that chip doesn't work. So that is my background. I'm a published author, and I ran a lean business manufacturing group, a $1 billion business group in Motorola, Freescale Semiconductor, except for 17 years. And I decided, with all that knowledge, I wanted to run for city council in Austin, Texas. I'm a conservative, right? And I'm a Christian. Oh man, they need me. They do. We all know that. They do. That's right. That's what I thought. That's what I thought. So ran for city council, wanting to bring some conservative, lean business practices to the energy department, the water department, and try to save taxpayers money. That was my goal. Well, Travis County, Austin, Texas. I don't think they wanted me as a city council member, but I ran anyway. I had done polls. We had a professional campaign, spent $100,000 on the campaign, and I only had 18 precincts I had to win. How simple. Now, being a computer technology person with patents and all that, I kind of knew about electronic voting fraud. I already knew about it. But I'll tell you one thing, I didn't realize that it would happen in a little city council race for only 18 precincts. I knew it in my back of my head, but I didn't think it would happen. So I ran. We did polls. I knew in my heart, and I believed in my heart I won. Okay? We had professional polls done, phone banking, block walking, all of it. On election night, man, there was two elections. One was a general and then a runoff. So I got into the runoff, and on the night of the runoff, I knew I'd won. I just knew it in my heart. I believed it. Somehow my opponent, a 25-year-old, beat me 2-1. He had just moved in the district 2 weeks prior to the deadline for someone to move in the district. I didn't believe it, and I started praying. I said, "Dear Lord, I need to understand what happened with this election." I had a guy who was a manager of another candidate on election night told me, he said, "Laura, your election results are at the same ratio of what they were in the general." Remember, there's a general and a runoff. And I went, okay, well, let me go look at that. So I can run an Excel spreadsheet pretty well. So I did that. Ran an Excel spreadsheet, started looking at the data. Okay, I ran for city council, and now I'm looking at a spreadsheet trying to prove why I didn't come out as the official winner. What I want to show you on the screen here is a bit of an eye chart. In November, there was a general election, and in December, there was a runoff. And I'm an engineer, and I'm thinking, if I were to hack an election, what would I do? How would I do it? And I said, you know, the 80-20 rule. Anybody know about the 80-20 rule? Yeah, okay. Where 80% of the issues is where you focus on. So I did that. I did that analysis. How many precincts where 80% of the votes were cast? So I got 9 precincts. And so the November election and the December, and when I did the analysis of what he and I got relative to each other, I noticed something really interesting. 3 precincts stayed exactly the same percent. And we all know in runoffs, half the people attrit out. So why are the numbers staying exactly the same? I also noticed one precinct went up 3%, and the other one went down 3%. It looked like something was being targeted. So I decided to do a statistical analysis. There were other candidates that were in runoffs, and I wanted to see their ratio of their December runoff to their November general election. I want to show you the results. One election, you kind of see a scatter plot. X-axis is the general, Y-axis is the runoff. How many people love algebra? Anybody in here? Okay, algebra, we all graduate from high school, right? You all took algebra 1. All right. Y versus X. Okay, here we go. So general on the X and runoff on the Y. I'm an engineer, what can I say? Okay, another candidate in the same runoff cycle as me. Another one, and this one was mine. Do y'all see a problem? I'll tell you, I was an engineer for 17 years. I knew what I was looking at. That proved to me there was a program. To me, knowing what I tell you, I do a presentation to the Exxon Mobil's retiree clubs, a bunch of engineers. When I see this, they start screaming. Yeah, it was hacked, look. This proved to me, guys, in Travis County, that my election was targeted. The person who probably hacked it didn't do it very creatively. They were kind of lazy, where they used the same program. The R squared is 0.98, and the slope is almost 0.9. They didn't do it very smart, did they? That proved to me, with 17 years experience, my election was hacked. Anybody that understands this, have any question about that? This is wrong. So, go to my next page. I started reading the election code. And the election code is a specification for how elections should be run in the state of Texas. I was an engineer, and I understood specs. Specs are the rules. So I read every chapter of the election code, and I was looking for one thing. What are the backup records that have to be there for these elections? Because look at this, something is wrong. I don't know what's wrong, who did it, I just know it's not right. You don't get a straight line. So I read the election code, and then I started getting focused on what's called the central counting station. Every county has it. It's the place where the computers come, where all the memory cards come in for these elections into the main computer. Every county has one. And guess what? That's where Stalin said it matters. Central count. So I started reading the code. What I noticed was the memory cards are supposed to come in from the precincts, and they put them into these computers. Your votes today are not counted by hand. They're counted electronically because they're on memory cards or memory sticks, right? And they go to the central count computer where they're counted. This is where the rubber meets the road, guys. So what I started doing, I started reading the code, and I noticed that there were these things called, let me go back, audit logs. This is in 2015. Audit logs are required by the state code to be a time, date stamp of every activity on that main computer when your votes are counted. So I talked to my lawyer. We decided to file an election contest because something's wrong. I shouldn't have that straight line. So we did discovery. We filed the lawsuit, did discovery, and got the audit logs of the main computer. And my lawyer's like, what's an audit log? And I'm like, well, you know, when I was an engineer for 17 years, we would use audit logs all the time, and that's semiconductor equipment. They would be called exception reports, where you would try to determine why something wasn't working in a memory device or a logic device, a chip didn't work. I've looked at audit logs for 17 years. These are easy to understand and easy to read. So we got the audit log for Travis County. And what I saw shocked me. We noticed on the audit log, and this thing's hundreds of pages, and most people don't even would know how to read it. But I knew how to do it because of my background. What we noticed, and I'm going to read this. This is the day the election was tabulated on my little city council race. There's an entry there that says invalid, corrupt mobile ballot box. Mobile ballot box are the memory cards. Do you want to see the word corrupt on your audit log of your computer when you're counting your votes? Is that a good word? It's not a good word. When that error message came on the screen, the user, the little guy putting in the data, he accepted it. Well, the SOP is to go quarantine that card and go figure out what happened. Nope, they're just rolling down the road and pushing accept. More and more corrupt messages all throughout my election. And what's interesting, those corruptions were coming in right before the polls where my votes were coming in. So we use this in our case. The other thing I was looking for, where are the backup records to prove what the votes were? Any election judges in the room? Okay. It's interesting, these polls, they're supposed to print what's called a results tape to back up the results of what's on the memory card in case the memory card has some kind of damage to it. And this is the election code. I'm not making any of this up. The election code says you have to have the original precinct returns, and you have to turn those into the county on a tape. And not to do it is a Class B misdemeanor. Well, Travis County told the judges, don't print the tape. Wow, we got a straight line, we got an audit log with corruption errors, and now I can't even go back and validate the number of votes that I got because the county told the judges don't print the tape. Well, guess what? It looked like to me this is a Class B misdemeanor. So sheriffs in here, you got a Class B misdemeanor and a county telling election judges, don't worry, don't print the tape. We had the county clerk on the witness stand, and we asked the county clerk, why did you tell the judges not to follow law? And she said, this is the excerpt from the deposition, actually from the hearing. This is a transcript. My lawyer said, do you think the Secretary of State can tell you not to follow law? She says, I know they can. This is in Texas, guys, our backyard. How many of you heard about Georgia changing the law midstream? Pennsylvania. It's going on in our backyard. And guess what? We have a constitutional Bill of Rights section that says, no power of suspending laws in the state shall be exercised except by the legislature. The Secretary of State is the executive branch. So, our backyard. In my election contest, we could not prove what the original results were because the records did not exist and the log was corrupted. So fast forward, what happened in my case. We filed the election contest. A district court sanctioned me over $100,000 for a frivolous lawsuit. They said, bring in all this statistical data, all these audit logs, and all these lack of records issues. Dr. Pressley, that's frivolous. And it was said in the courtroom they wanted to make the sanctions so high so that no candidate ever in the state of Texas would ever challenge these electronic voting machines again. This was trying to deter the truth. So we said we're going to appeal. The judge said, well, we're going to sanction you some more if you appeal and you lose. So we went to the Third Court of Appeals. And we lost. They validated what the judge said, that all this was frivolous. We were sitting at $145,000 in sanctions. And guys, what would you do if your girl came home and said, honey, I just got sanctioned $145,000? What would y'all do? My husband, my precious husband, said, go forward because we're going to prove what the truth is. So we went to the Texas Supreme Court. We did. And we were going to get sanctioned some more if we lost there. We took it to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court took the case, and we did it pro se, means no lawyer. And I'm going to tell you, the dear Lord wrote the petition. This is the truth, okay? Reminds me of the story of Gideon, right? The Supreme Court ruled. They took the case, ruled and said the district court abused their discretion because here's what was at risk. If this was upheld, no candidate moving forward could ever claim this stuff as evidence. It would all be frivolous. There was a lot on the line in this case in Texas. This was a case of first impression. They ruled that the third court erred in affirming that abuse of discretion by the district court, and all the sanctions were removed, and my opponent had to pay court costs. That's good. You got it. So as I was going around the state talking about this, because I needed to raise money, and many of you in here had me present at your areas. Ray Meyer, God bless you. Tom Brashear, thank you. So many more. God bless y'all for letting me tell this story. And I've presented about over 450 presentations in the last 6 years. As I was going around raising money for this, guess what I noticed? It was not just Travis County that was telling people not to follow law. It wasn't just Travis County who had corruption errors on their audit logs. Harris County had them. Harris County, largest county in the state of Texas, third largest in the country, had corruption errors just like mine. It was shocking. I started training central counting watchers across the state because that's where Stalin said it matters, right? Where the votes are being counted. So I started training watchers all across Texas. This has taken us many years to do this. And the counties in red are where we have ballot discrepancies and audit log errors. It's not just Travis. It's incredible all over the state. So as Stalin said, it matters who counts the vote. So I started my company, True Texas Elections. We provide statistical election data analysis, audit log analysis, election watcher training, expert testimony, consulting for voters, candidates, election officials, political parties, and PACs, focused on vote counting integrity. Other people work on voter registration lists. Other people work on absentee mail-in ballot fraud. I'm working on electronic vote counting integrity. Amen is right. So this is my company. So I'm going to show you kind of what our strategy is around the state. Because I'll tell you one thing, we can't do anything about Georgia. We can't do anything about Pennsylvania or Michigan. We have to carry our own water in our own backyard. I'm going to show you what our backyard looks like. Okay? So we've got election watchers that we've been training all over the state. And what we do, we correlate what they see in those central county stations with what the audit logs say. Because if you just have one, you're missing a big piece. You got to look at them both. And I actually had someone from the Washington Post ask me this question. And it was a good question. He says, Laura, if your election watchers see something at central count, how do you know they know what they're seeing? And I said, well, because I've got the audit log to correlate it. You got to have both pieces. You really, really do. So in 2015, we started putting watchers in central count. All the way through 2020, we had about 20 counties covered. This last November, we had over 35 counties, 65% of voters, and 9 million voters covered at central counting stations in the state of Texas. First time ever in the country, ever in Texas. First time ever, ever. This is huge. This is huge. We also had, we had some extra watchers because we've been training so many over the years. We kind of backed up a little bit. We wanted to start where the memory cards start. When the polls close, like early vote, on that Friday night. Think about this. Polls close on Friday night for early vote, but they're not tabulated. You don't see the result till Tuesday. 4 days. What's going on with those memory cards? Early vote is not our friend, guys. Anything in elections that is convenient is not your friend. That's a paradigm shift. Early vote closes Friday. You see the results on Tuesday. What's going on for 4 days? We've been putting watchers for 4 days in central count, not just election night. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, we're watching what's going on, and it will curl your toes what's happening. Okay? So we started putting watchers back at the early voting sites to watch that memory card all the way through. All right, so this is our strategy of the watchers. What's interesting, these watchers generate a bunch of evidence. And we use that evidence to file criminal cases with Ken Paxton's office. All right. There's certain in the election code, there's certain statutes that say how to do this. We check all the boxes and we file criminal complaints. We've been filing criminal complaints with Ken Paxton since the 2018 primary. In Dallas, we've been watching in Dallas since 16, so we know what the audit logs say. We gathered all the evidence from the watchers. We filed the first criminal complaint in Dallas County, 2018 primary. We filed it for the 2018 November election. San Antonio, we have filed 2 complaints in 2020, and Travis also. So these are criminal complaints in Ken Paxton's office to do with electronic counting fraud. Not voter registration or illegal voters or absentee or mail-in ballots. Vote counting, okay? Those cases are pending, and we've not seen any results out of that so far, which is not what I would want. Civil cases. In Dallas, 2 civil cases have been filed. 1, and it's based on the watchers' evidence that they've gained with their experience and what's on the audit logs. So in 2019, the watchers were there's watchers that filed, and where's Kirk Lanius? Where's Kirk? He's a plaintiff in both these cases in Dallas. I want you to give a hand to Kirk. Nice. Yeah. So there's a watcher obstruction case. Dallas is obstructing watchers, and there's a case right now. It's in the Texas Supreme Court, case of first impression. In 2019, there was a $1 billion bond contest. Kirk was a plaintiff on that, and that's pending in the Dallas Court of Appeals. So we're going to talk a lot about that in a minute. I'm going to show you some evidence, what it really looks like. What does these kind of cases look like? I'm going to show you some of the evidence that I analyzed. Also, Fredericksburg, there's a case. In Williamson County, there's a sheriff contest right now in 2020. I'm an expert witness in all these cases. Okay? It's an amazing road that the Lord has put me on, gosh, since my election in 2014. Okay, so I'm going to show you a little bit of the data for the 2019 election bond case in Dallas. Kirk is the plaintiff. I'm kind of going to roll through these pretty quick. We're going to show some detailed data in just a little bit that I analyzed for the case. There's 1,000 precincts in Dallas County. 300 precincts showed more ballots cast than voters that showed up to the polls. Does that sound like Georgia? This is our backyard, guys. We worry so much about everybody else. We got to make sure we're staying clean here in our state. The watchers were obstructed in Central Count from watching the early vote download. I think Trey Traynor, he's an Election Assistance Commission chair of that, he said, if the watchers are obstructed, it's an illegitimate election. That's his quote. That's Trey Traynor's quote. 71,000 ballots were replaced 8 days after the initial download. 71,000 ballots. There was a 55,000 margin. Almost 5,000 election day ballots were replaced from a source that looks like other than the polls. The tabulation computer reports don't match. Looks like there's 2 sets of books. And here's some big ones. Looks like the county in Dallas used uncertified software to tabulate the vote. They used uncertified equipment to download the data. They used uncertified processes to transfer the data from one place to another. Oh, and when the lawsuit was filed, when Kurt filed the lawsuit, Dallas County they sold, and the equipment was destroyed 2 months after the lawsuit was filed. This is amazing, and many of this stuff's not disputed. Uncertified equipment. What I want to do is show you kind of the data, what it looks like in the audit log. Election day ballots were replaced in 85 precincts. The data was downloaded from a modem, which was not the certified. They weren't supposed to do it. They did it anyway. And then the data was replaced. Almost 5,000 ballots. The audit log shows it. Download, replace. Download, replace for 85 precincts. Okay? What you think about how Dallas works, they've got a scanner and they've got a tape that shows what the results were for election day. The tape is saved as a paper backup record. There's a memory card from the scanning machine that goes down and gets counted. So the memory card gets downloaded, it goes down to Central Count, and this is where the uncertified process happened. They download it via a modem, which is not allowed, and you have some tapes that show the results in which precincts, and they somehow download it again, and they don't match for precincts. This was just surprising. We've never seen this across the state of Texas. Never seen it before. 71,000 early votes were downloaded 8 days after the initial download on 5/1, and then it was 5 days after on 5/4, and this is the audit log. You can see they cleared the data, collected the data, canceled the data, cleared, and then collected it again 8 days after the initial download. It's surprising, really surprising. The other thing is these election reports were not matching. So you've got a group of ballots, let's say absentee ballots, that go into the main computer and they go into the hard drive. Okay? You'll have early vote ballots coming into the main computer in an uncertified process that is, the Secretary of State said do not do it this way because it's not secure, but they did it anyway, and it goes into the hard drive. And then you got another set of ballots, election day, goes in the computer and goes into the hard drive. Now, if that computer is going to generate some reports, some of those reports should match if the data is coming from one source. The audit log shows there were a certain number of ballots that were counted, and on those ballots you have each race, right? Then it puts out what's called a canvass report. How many here have run for office? Many. The canvass report's the final report, right? The log and the canvass report should match. Well, guess what in Dallas? They don't. What's that mean? Does it mean the computer can't add? Computers are good at adding stuff, right? What's it mean if the two reports don't match? Could there be two sets of books? Could there be two sets of books? Well, that's what was claimed. That was my testimony in the trial. I was on the witness stand 2 days. These, in my opinion, should match, and they didn't. Okay. Another thing, the audit log is kind of important, right? My case in the Texas Supreme Court, my election contest, was the first time I'm aware of anybody using an audit log in an election contest ever in the country. This is an important document, and in Texas, we are protected that we will have this audit log for every election. And there's even a code, the Texas Administrative Code, that says what that audit log is supposed to have on it. You're supposed to have, and I've got in yellow here, the number of ballots that are read for every precinct, the completion of the reading of the ballots, and the loggers, the people logging in and out. It's kind of basic stuff, right? Computer people, how many computer people in here? Raise your hand. Okay, this makes sense, right? This makes sense. You got to have who's logging in, who's logging out, and how many ballots are being read. Here's the Dallas audit log from 2019, and it's similar to audit logs back to 2016 that I've analyzed. You notice this here, 4-9, the activity is cleared data. The next entry is 5-1. Where's the log out? Where's the log in? It's not on there. The log doesn't meet the state criteria. Any question about that? It's proved right here in black and white. You can see it. No login, no user. The user ID is text 1. It's a computer. It's not a person. There's a problem there. Also, there's no ballot data on this log. Why is that? It's supposed to meet the criteria, right? Well, even when the state certified the audit log back in 2007, looky here. The examiner, this is Texas Secretariat, this is the AG's examiner, Ken Paxton's examiner, what was that at the time? It was Abbott. I think maybe he was Attorney General back in 2007. The examiner said, man, that log has all of those items. What does it mean that in 2007 it had it, in 2019 it doesn't? What's that mean? Are they the same audit log? 2007, the secretary, the examiner and AG examiner said, that log's got it. But today, in 2019, it doesn't. Does it mean that the software, either the examiner lied, or maybe the software is not the certified software that was certified in 2007? Does that make any sense? I'm just asking the question. How's that feel to have Dallas County use uncertified equipment and maybe now uncertified software? Our own backyard, guys. So what about, those are the old voting systems. This was Dallas, they used the old voting system, 2009. We got new voting systems now, right? These hybrid voting systems. Well, let's look at their audit logs. Do they meet the criteria? No, they don't. They don't have the precinct level data, but they were certified to it. What does that mean? This is another kind of log. This is Travis County's audit log, the current one. One of the users is admin. You're supposed to know who's logging in and out. We don't know who's logging in and out. The admin person looks like they downloaded, I don't know, thousands of ballots. 24,000 ballots from admin who we have no clue who they are. This is our own backyard, guys. Travis County and Dallas, I've just showed you. All right, so what are the next steps? First of all, I want you to understand if we don't understand the problem, we can't solve it. I'm an engineer. You've got to have the real truth and the real problem before you know what the root cause is to go fix. I think we understand vote counting now is an issue. No one had ever focused on this prior to my contest. The dear Lord put me on this path. And I just pray, I say, God, thank you for the work that you're putting me and helping and allowing me to do, because it's meaningful work. We all want meaningful work, right? We all do. And I believe this is meaningful work. But we have to be careful what we ask for. Do we want honest and true elections? Because if you don't have them, what happens? We can't vote the bums out. Okay? If you can't vote the bums out, the bums might know we don't matter. You ever had a state rep, state senator, commissioner who didn't pay attention to the people? Maybe they know we don't matter. I believe that elections are the representation of the free will of mankind. When God created us, He gave us free will. If our free will is being thwarted and we're not able to represent what we want, God's will is being thwarted. I believe this is God's work. There's no question in my mind. This is God's work. People work on registration lists, people work on absentee. I'm working on election vote counting integrity. But true elections means work. It means we might not get to do something simple. We might have to get rid of early voting. We might have to get rid of countywide polling. Okay? Judges might have to print those tapes, even though it's going to mean hours and hours before and after. Because what's happening now, all this convenience, we're losing our country and our state because it's convenient. So we formed something that's called the Joshua Council. We formed a coalition I've got all these watchers all over the state, hundreds of them. So we formed a coalition and we decided to come up with some legislative priorities for Texas to improve the laws. We've got over 250 election watchers around the state. So we came up with some legislative priorities. I'm just going to kind of go through them. We want all the tapes printed. We want to repeal countywide. We want the electronic poll books, get rid of those. Okay, they're convenient, but there's internet connections and there's issues with them. We want judges to sign the ballots so that they're not counterfeited. And then at central counting stations, we want watchers to have a camera. We want early vote not to be downloaded 4 days ahead of time. We want watchers monitoring the download to third parties, and we want to increase the criminal penalties. So this is our legislative priorities from our Joshua Council watchers from around Texas. And we've got Bob Hall and the House Elections Committee that we've sent this coalition letter from all of these people who signed on to this. And I thank you to many of you who have done it in here, so thank you for that. All right, so what's our integrity going forward? Our election watchers, we're going to keep them going all over the state. We're going to grow the counties. I need watchers in Montgomery County. Anybody in Montgomery County want to be election watcher? You got it. I want you to come to me after this, and I want to get your name because we need them in Montgomery. We don't have them in Montgomery yet. We're going to keep focused on Ken Paxton, trying to influence. Y'all know him. Call him. Say, please prosecute. Please investigate these vote counting fraud criminal complaints that have been in your office since 2018. The civil cases are going to move forward. We're going to move forward with the legislative session. The other thing we're doing is county parties around the state. The county chairs of parties, Democrat and Republican, have a lot of power in making these things happen. So we're working with them. These are a list of the felony statutes for vote counting fraud. I'm not putting registration stuff up here. This is vote counting. And these red ones we have seen in Texas. Tampering with a direct recording electronic voting machine and tampering with a government record. We have seen these across the state. These are the misdemeanors for vote counting. And these are the ones we have had problems with around the state of Texas. A ton of them. Some of these complaints are what we have submitted to Ken Paxton, and we need his help. Because here's the deal, guys. Imagine this, if you've got election counting fraud or illegalities going on in a county, how open do you think the DAs are to prosecuting this stuff? Why would you bite the hand that feeds you? The DAs are elected. You see the problem here? So that's why we focus on Ken Paxton, because he comes in from outside that entity, outside that system. But what Ken has reported, what people who have been interviewed by Ken's investigators have told me that the DAs in these difficult counties won't even call him back. And the AG doesn't really have individual jurisdiction. He has to work with the DAs.
Have the sheriff arrest them.
Dallas, Bear, Travis. You see the system here? The DA is elected under these systems. So Ken is it. Ken is our guy. We need a little more support on that. So we have the power to ensure legal elections. I need watchers more and more around the state. Voters and watchers can file lawsuits. We have a list of lawyers that have worked on these previous cases that have the experience now in these types of situations. So I can help you I can refer you to lawyers that we have for this work. We're going to lobby the legislature. And we need the sheriffs in Texas to be educated on these election counting criminal statutes. And I'm going to tell you a story. There's watchers in Dallas. And there's a watcher case in Dallas right now for them being obstructed. The watchers, when they're being obstructed from watching, will call the sheriff's office in Dallas and get a case number and get the sheriff's deputies out there. The sheriff deputies have actually removed the watchers from the site. It's pitiful. It is nothing but pitiful. So in Dallas, they're trying to educate the sheriff's deputies on what the election laws are. Remember, only the legislature can suspend a law. Not a county clerk, county administrator, county judge, any of them. So we need the sheriffs to understand those statutes that I just showed you. If you're a sheriff in Texas, you would like a list of these statutes, I'm here to help you train your deputies on this stuff. we can help you with that. Because we are the backstop for honest elections. If we can't vote the bums out, we're stuck. It's us. There's so much we can do. All right, well, I'm grateful for y'all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Pressley.